August 30th, 2024. It's Labor Day weekend and it's been a hot summer in the valley. We're long past due for a treat from the heat, but there's a little problem. In these Arizona summers, whenever you have finally had enough of the blistering heat, so is everyone else. In one of the favored summer destinations of the over 4.5 million valley dwellers, the Mogollon Rim. Although the Rim is a gorgeous landscape and there are more secluded and wild places to be found and explored, we were in search of a place a little bit more untamed. Somewhere where even on a holiday weekend, the chance of seeing another human would be scarce. Our pick, the wild and robust White Mountains. This range of high country is a place of beauty and vehemency I've always heard about in the time I've lived in Arizona, but I've never gotten around to exploring. It's also one of the few places that supports Arctic Grayling, a fish only native to Michigan and Montana in the lower 48. With its rich history, stunning landscape with peaks reaching up to 11,400 feet, bountiful opportunities for the outdoorsman, and most importantly, the 60-degree, cooler high-end temps than Phoenix made it the perfect time to set out on an adventure. The Arctic Grayling can be an elusive fish here in Arizona, with very few places they can be found, but after a little research, I know where we'd be headed to. Now, all we have to do is pack. From home, the drive will just be over 5 hours if all goes well. Of course, there's the stops for food, for gas, the inevitable pace in traffic, not to mention the surprise of rain throughout the entire drive, which Arizonans just can't seem to figure out how to drive in yet. As we got over the halfway mark, the landscape changed, and so did the traffic. We were entering the gateway to the White Mountains. This beautiful and rugged landscape was ever so different from the places we've been to before. The Rim, Sedona, Williams, even Flagstaff. This place was more wild, more free, and although many people have been here before and love it, the switchback roads free of other cars and people for miles and miles felt like we were the ones pioneering these mountains for the first time. After a while of traversing through the high mountain and backcountry, we were finally coming up to our destination. It was getting late and the sun was soon to set, but we wanted to scout out a fishing spot for the next morning. As we drove down the ridge to the pond and the creek, it was to our surprise to see fish rising everywhere, and I mean everywhere. After trying to decipher what they were eating and picking through various different dry flies, I was confused on how the ant and parachutes weren't enticing a bite. So I tried on some small nymphs. Still, nothing. In the meantime, while I'm still fumbling around with my flies, Evan's been getting some action on a custom single-hooked spinner, amassing several bites and landing 2 fish. After no luck with the fly rod this far, it was getting a little darker and my visibility was quickly deteriorating. So I tied on the only thing I could see really well, the biggest fly in my box, a purple chubby with huge white wings. And so I sent it out, and it barely even hit the water when the surface erupted, like the fish was watching it fly through the air. I had one. As a fly fisherman in progress, every fish I catch on a fly is cherished. It's special. Although I've grown up fishing, this is the skill and method I had to learn and hone on my own. So, every fish that I catch, it feels like a reward for my labor in a way. After a release, it was time to get back on the trail and find a spot to set up camp for the night. With our first eyes-on experience of Arizona's Arctic Grayling, it's easy to see how beloved this hidden gem of a fish really is. With their bronze flashing in the water as they put up a fight, their silver flanks freckled with spots, and the unique, long, aqua-webbed dorsal fin make this fish an amazing addition to these high mountain lakes and rivers. The new moon and clear conditions allowed for a beautiful dark night sky, revealing the Milky Way in hues of colors with the help of high exposure cameras. Being in big country under the Lord's painted night sky reminded me of how small we really are. Psalm 19 verses 1 and 2 says, "The heavens proclaim the glory of God, the skies display his craftsmanship. Day after day they continue to speak. Night after night they make him known. They speak without sound or word, their voice is never heard, yet their message has gone throughout the earth, and their words to all the world." After a night's rest, we get up before the crack of dawn to tear down camp and get to fishing. We make our way back down to the ridge, to the spot, and when we get there, again, we see all the fish rising, some completely out of the water. The temptation is real, but we have more important things to do. At this time, even with the promise of Arctic Grayling right outside the truck door, we sacrifice some time to draw close, to connect to the one who created all this for us to enjoy. We camp in Luke 11 and Ephesians 5, highlighting that as men of God, we ought to be as warriors in Christ, not letting the enemy take any foothold over our lives. Then we go over our tools we use as our defense and offense in this warfare. Our number one tool being the words of Christ and what he says about us. After we wrap up our study, it's time to get to it. We only have a bit of time before we have to make our trek back to the valley. So, to make best use of our time, we get to fishing. It's a beautiful morning. A fresh breath of the 43-degree crisp mountain air was just what was needed. All that was missing was some beautiful fish in the net. Evan was back on the single hook spinner, and I tried using an ant under an indicator. Although we caught a few, something was missing. There was more fish activity than we had strikes. We might have gotten some hungry stragglers, but we haven't figured out the bite yet. Lucky for us, we met Jeff. He's a rad dude that works for the AZ Fly Shop, a sweet little shop in the valley, and he was super knowledgeable and helpful. His insight and fly recommendations were able to put us on some more fish, and pretty quickly too. Jeff gave me an articulated damsel to try, and pretty quickly, I was getting some action. Sometimes the grayling would be taking my indicator under completely, and I don't know if they were just small, or I was too slow, or a little bit of both, but I missed probably around 30 fish in total. We had such a fun time just seeing them bite, but we had a lot more fun reeling them in. These special little fish were absolute dimes, and I loved every second I was able to see them. These hardy little fish put up a great fight and were an absolute blast to play around with. While we were brook trout fishing in Michigan over the summer, we lost out on an opportunity to go for these charming little Arctic beauties in some of their native, picturesque lands. The Arctic Grayling was once abundant in the state until the 1930s, when mass logging destroyed their spawning grounds. Sadly, the Arctic Grayling was classified as extinct in Michigan nearly a century ago. But in recent years, restoration and recovery efforts have brought them back to the waters they roamed 100 years ago. The Michigan DNR brought them back to catchable numbers in late 2023 and legalized the practice of catch and release only in the bodies of water they reside in. Maybe next year we'll have a shot at these special Michigan natives in their own homeland next time we go out. For now, our time with these fish was up, but the time spent here with my brother, God, and these fish in the mountains will keep replaying in my head for quite a while longer. Until next time.